All right, can everybody see my screen now? Okay. Good morning and welcome. This is a Counselor Connection event, which is what we kind of like to call it. It's a combination of some professional learning and then also some networking time where we can just chat with some of our light position colleagues. So we're glad you're here. Like I said, we do have a few different presenters joining us today. Michelle Clark from the Department of Education is going to be sharing a legislative update. She is the Director of Student, School, and Family Engagement. Dr. Flora Jones is the Director of Student Pathways from the Department of Education. She is also going to be sharing some of what's happening at the state, including kind of an overview of GPS. Greg Harrell is from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. He is the Director of Legislation and Program Implementation and will be sharing an update from his office, which will include 21st Century Scholars, among some other things. My name is Amanda Callahan. I coordinate Counselor Connect, which I'll talk just very briefly about here over the next couple of slides. And then at the end, we'll have some networking time, go into breakout rooms, and those will be facilitated by Samantha Vidal, Counselor Professional Learning Specialist with CISE. And high school will be Flora Jones and Michelle Clark, and then counselor leaders will be myself, and possibly somebody else will be joining me to facilitate that as well. So we look forward to our time together. With that, I'm going to welcome you again. If you could, you should have access to the slides. Also, the bit.ly on the screen here will take you to a Jamboard. So with the Jamboard, we would love to see what you would like to maybe talk about. If there's a certain topic or a question that you have that you want to be sure is discussed during our brief networking time in a little bit, then please visit this bit.ly, go to the Jamboard, write a little sticky note, put your topic or question on that sticky note and put it on your board. There are 3 different boards. So if you scroll across, you will see the elementary, intermediate, middle school board, and then there's a high school board, and then finally a counselor leadership board. So I will give you just a quick second if you want to get into that and write down a topic of interest. Okay, I'm going to keep moving, but you can feel free to keep adding to your Jamboard. Keep it up on your screen if you want. If you think of something as we're hearing from our presenters, then certainly you can add that in. Here's our agenda for the day. Again, we have our state updates, which will be the majority of the time we spend. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of networking time before we close. Just very quickly, Counselor Connect wanted to share a little bit about us. We are operated by Keep Indiana Learning. Both initiatives are operated by the Central Indiana Educational Service Center, or CIESC. CIESC is one of 9 educational service centers in the state of Indiana. We are located in the Indianapolis area, and Counselor Connect supports counselors statewide. So while we are a part of an ESC, we are a statewide support network for student service professionals. We started in spring of 2020 is when we launched, and obviously everything at that time went virtual. So we offer a lot of professional learning virtually, but also some in-person events and workshops as well. We have 4 tactic teams, which are made up of counselors, counselor leaders, administrators, community partners, that really help support the work that Counselor Connect does. A lot of the team work includes putting out presentations, being presenters, giving us ideas for topics, needs, helping us create different resources and other content that would be helpful for people in the field. So if you're interested in learning more about being a part of a tactic team, please let me know and we will get you plugged in to one of those. Finally, here's some of the support that we provide, which I've already shared. At the end of the presentation, I'll share some upcoming events that we have, and also we'll share some links to some of the digital resources that we offer. With that, I am going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to share her legislative update.
Well, good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second to get acclimated. So sorry here. The multiple screens we have. All right, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome.
Sound good.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Clark, and I work at the Indiana Department of Education. So today I'm just going to give you a brief legislative update. This session was jam-packed, and so want to make sure that everybody stays informed on the legislation that was passed. I know as a counselor in the field, it wasn't something that was always front and center in my world, but the things that happen in the legislation definitely can impact some of the work that we do. So I think that it's a good idea to have some knowledge on those legislative items that come through each session. So this is just an overview of what we're going to talk about today. Some of these actually will fall into CAT, so I'll let Greg probably dive into those a little further, but we'll just brief you on each of these bills this morning. Amanda did share her slides, which will have this presentation. As you can see too here, if you want to scan this code, it will take you to the presentation that Rebecca and I did in our NACAC breakout sessions that we did. So it's slightly altered than this presentation, but it's the same information. Again, just a brief introduction. Michelle Clark. I'm the director of the Student School Family Engagement Team at the Department of Education. And I just wanted to take a quick minute to talk about my team, or our team, the Office of Student School Family Engagement. We oversee school counseling, school social work, prevention. We oversee some federal grants, Project Aware being the main one that we oversee. We do foster youth. And so just lots of different things come out of our office. We're overseeing the employability skills work at the department. So a lot of our information is now located in a Moodle community. So if you are looking for where the old school counselor kind of brief basic information was on the website, it is now located in the Moodle. We also have some growing information on family engagement as well. So definitely take a look. You can enroll, and the enrollment key is engagement. We also have a team mailbox, engagement at doe.in.gov. So this legislative session adjourned in the early hours of February, April 28th, and 252 bills were sent to Governor Holcomb for signature of the 1,154 bills that were filed. For today, I'm just going to go over some of the legislation that might affect your work as a school counselor. At this time, DOE has provided a comprehensive guidance document with the memos that individually go to each of these, the legislation that was passed. So if you wanted to click, or this comprehensive guidance document will be able to show you kind of a deep dive into what I'm talking about today. It's definitely one of those things you might want to share with your administration team, or if you want to just like bookmark it on your computer, it's definitely a helpful document as you'll reference the Indiana code moving forward. It also is updated in the weekly newsletter from Dr. Jenner. So if you are enrolled to receive her emails, you'll be able to see the legislation update there too. All right. So the first large bill that we'll talk about is HEA 1001, and this is regarding state budget. Some of the key things to note from the state budget bill, the first one is that schools may no longer charge students for curricular materials. So I know this is kind of controversial as a parent, I'm thankful, but I know as an educator, it can cause schools to kind of have to reallocate funds in different places since they can't charge students for some of the curricular materials. So it's been just a shift for schools to navigate, but parents no longer will pay school material fees. Schools will also submit total per pupil curricular material costs by grade level. So the state will give allocations for those. Dual credit courses taken at higher ed institution may be subject to fees. So that still is something that would be a cost to students, including their books. So something to consider as a school. And additional information can be found in the memo that's in the main comprehensive document that I shared. Also in the state budget, we have the Student Learning Recovery Grant expansion. So during the pandemic in 2021, the 1008 grant program was established to accelerate student learning in light of COVID-19 learning disruptions. So this grant focuses on community organizations in schools and supports literacy, math, and college and career readiness. 1001 is going to provide continued funding for these efforts and also allow existing grantees additional time to spend their funds. Non-English speaking program funding. So this ensures that DOE will provide full reimbursement for our EL students on a per pupil basis. So there will be funding tied to our students in the EL population. The average daily membership count day consolidation. So as required in prior code, IDOE collects the daily count of students in both the fall and the spring. In addition to those days, there was also a federal pupil enrollment count annually during the fall semester. And to alleviate count days, this bill consolidates so that there will be one in the fall and one in the spring. So there'll no longer be two count days in the fall. The federal fall ADM count day and the federal PE count will occur on Monday, October 2nd, so coming up. This next bill was also a large one for the Department of Education. HEA 1002 has a lot of information in it regarding college and career readiness. And so one of those pieces of that really is going to fall on the Department of Education is to rethink high school graduation requirements. Our graduation requirements, the Core 40, was first introduced in 1994 and really have not changed substantially since that time beyond the addition of graduation pathways. And so there is currently work going on to consider the diploma requirements moving forward. This work is going to focus on three key areas that they're looking at. So number one, like I said, the diploma requirements, making them more flexible and relevant to students and their pathways. High quality work-based learning opportunities to improve access to students and having those opportunities. And then credentials of value, increasing access to high value post-secondary credentials before high school graduation. So students are coming out of high school with credentials of currency. Another big part of 1002 is the career scholarship account. And so the CSAs provide $5,000 to students in grades 10 through 12 enrolled in eligible programs to cover costs of career coaching and navigation, post-secondary education and training, transportation, or equipment and certifications and exams. So these scholarships are available to students, so the students actually will apply for them. For the 2023 school year, the IDOE designates and improves the following for CSA funding. So this would include next level programs of study, modern youth apprenticeships as defined in Indiana code that are aligned to a next level program of study, U.S. Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programs, and the Indiana College Core, and level 2 or above work-based learning experiences. So those are what's been approved for the 23-24 school year. Continuing that, CHE will approve a limited number of providers for the 23-24 school year. And like I said, those follow along the same lines of what I just said, CTE, intermediaries for modern youth apprenticeships, and institutions that award the ICC. And the counts will, the applications for CSA accounts for this school year will close on Sunday, October 1st. So it's definitely something that would need to be done very quickly. And then also in 1002, there is a teacher higher education and industry collaboration grant program and fund. And then there's the career coaching and meetings requirements, which is another piece that I think school counselors have asked questions about, and that requires the commission to create a list of approved colleges and universities, intermediaries, employers, and labor organizations to conduct 30-minute meetings with high school juniors and seniors. There will be more guidance coming out from CHE in mid-October regarding this piece of the legislation. The next bill is HEA 1447, personal analysis, evaluations, or surveys by third-party vendors. So again, this is one that a lot of school counselors would utilize personal analysis or evaluations or surveys to identify student need. And so because of this legislation, it's important to understand what this means for you as a school. But as outlined by the legislation, this requires qualified schools to obtain parental consent before certain personal analysis, evaluations, or surveys may be administered to a student. It also requires that the schools post a copy of the survey to the school website. It gives parents the right to review the survey. It restricts the manner in which the responses or the results from this survey may be recorded, collected, or maintained. And requires schools to include specific provisions in their contracts if you're partnering with a third-party vendor that is giving the survey. So it's just important for schools to understand that when they are giving what is considered a personal analysis, an evaluation, or a survey, you need to ensure that, number one, you're getting parental consent, and that you're doing it following these guidelines where 31 days before a school may administer a survey, they have to have written requests for consent from parents. And then it's after, I think it's 21 days. If they don't hear, they have to do it again. And then if they don't hear from the parents, then they are free to give the survey. There are exceptions to this rule. And this does not apply to academic tests or assessments, career aptitude or interest surveys, assessments or screening instruments given by a third-party psychologist, social worker, marriage and family therapist, or mental health counselor licensed who was referred in a crisis situation, and then has received, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. But then also to gauge or attempt to gauge satisfaction with the qualified school's programming, technology, or curriculum. So just be aware that if you are doing a type of survey that is an analysis with students' feelings, that you want to make sure that you are getting parental consent for that survey. There is additional guidance provided in the main guidance document that I had shared earlier. HEA 1449, 21st Century Scholars Program. This requires CHE to identify and enroll eligible students into the 21st Century Scholars Program. So this is a win for school counselors, I believe, because this allows students who qualify to be enrolled and kind of takes the school counselor as the middleman out of this. I will let Greg speak in more detail on this bill during his presentation, but the auto enrollment does begin with the class of 2027. So this year's incoming freshmen or current freshmen. Students are still required to meet their requirements through Scholar Track. HEA 1558, Science of Reading. So as you may know, Indiana has invested quite a bit of funding into improving the literacy of Indiana Hoosiers. And so this work aligns with our Graduates Prepared to Succeed goal of 95% of third graders are proficient in literacy skills by 2027. The current data states that 1 in 5 students is not passing iRead. And so this has been a big concern of the department, really pushing literacy for Indiana Hoosier students. So some of this bill includes science of reading curriculum for future teachers. So ensuring that future educators receive a literacy endorsement that is specific to science of reading. It also requires IDOE to review and publish a list of high quality curriculum in reading. And also they caution you to getting into a long-term contract prior to this formalized list in 2024. Their curriculum must be posted on local schools' websites, so no later than July 15th. Each year, school corporations must post curriculum and other information regarding their literacy curriculum on their website. And it also provides a literacy endorsement for current teachers. So current teachers that don't have the background knowledge in science of reading can get an endorsement. Likewise, HEA 1590, various education matters. This also furthers the statewide 95% goal by targeting supports for schools with less than 70% of their students passing iRead. It also provides funding for a previously unfunded mandate on Indiana schools for dyslexia. So schools were had to provide the dyslexia screener, and now there's funding to back that up. It also requires IDOE to review and publish a list of high quality curriculum regarding STEM. And again, cautions schools from purchasing long-term contracts until the formal list is given in 2024. And there's also a next level computer science fund grant opportunity. There's also HEA 1591, various education matters that include school performance and accountability. So again, they're issuing a null or no letter grade for 2022, 2023, and 2023-24 school years. But in lieu of issuing letter grades in an effort to provide transparency in school performance, this bill requires the Department of Education to develop a report card for public and state accredited non-pub schools to post on their websites by October 15th. And this will provide key data points for parents, families, and communities to better understand how a school is performing. There is a memo with more details on that, but that is something that will be coming out here soon. So there will be no letter grades as they revise the accountability system, but they will provide this report card for schools. HEA 1635, Education Matters, utilizing the ASVAB graduation pathway. This bill outlines additional parameters for students who use the ASVAB to meet graduation pathway requirements. Beginning with the class of 2025 grad cohort, it requires students selecting to use the ASVAB as a means for meeting grad pathways to submit a military enlistment intent form. So students who use the ASVAB would be signing a form of intent that they are enlisting in the military. So this begins with the class of 2025. The class of 2024, if a student took the ASVAB prior to July, they can use that to meet their graduation pathway. But if they have not already met that requirement, then they would not be able to use the ASVAB unless they signed the military enlistment intent form. Again, this one talks more about revising Indiana's current accountability system. So as you know, we've received null letter grades for a while now, and IDOE is charged with developing a proposal to revise our current accountability system. And so that will be determined no later than December 1st, 2024. And then graduation waivers, this is another one impacting school counselors to be aware of. There's new caps on percentages of grad waivers that will be counted toward a school's state and local graduation rate, beginning with this current class of 2024. This means that any students over any schools that have over 9% of their students receiving waivers, those waivers would not count for a state and local graduation rate. So just be mindful, you can still issue more than 9% waivers, but anything over 9% is not going to count in your graduation rate. And currently our graduation rates, I'm sorry, not our graduation rates, but our waiver rates are fairly high. I think since COVID, things have just not been, the notifications haven't gone out as much, and so those numbers have risen. So I think that it's important as school counselors to maybe look at your percentage of waivers from maybe the past couple years, just to see kind of where you are and be mindful of that as you work to graduate the class of 2024. Additional notices will go out to schools that will show them where their current waiver rate is. And then the FAFSA SEA 167 requires the FAFSA completion for high school seniors beginning with this class of 2024. Again, I'll let Greg go into more detail about that, but parents can opt out of filing, and also a high school can waive the requirement if they've made 2 attempts to the home. And then additional legislation of note, there's AED recommendations. So schools must have AED machines in close proximity of certain areas in a school. There's additional human trafficking identification best practices. So ensuring that your educators are maintaining aware of the information regarding human trafficking. McKinney-Vento liaisons. The General Assembly repealed the state law requiring schools to have a liaison. However, the federal rule still exists. School corporation expenditure requirements. So this is a requirement to ensure that Indiana schools are spending their tuition support, instead of 45%, it's at 62% of their tuition support regarding funding teacher compensation. So this hopefully will increase teacher salaries across the board. We also have the launch of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So if you're a parent of little ones or you are around preschoolers, this is a great opportunity for them to receive books every month. There are some changes to charter school operations funding coming. The career coaching and meeting requirements will be coming from 1002. And then there are increases to the secured school safety grant. So there are some things considering school safety that will be coming out in the future. If you have additional questions, here's the contact for Rebecca Fraser, the school counseling specialist, along with myself. If there are more legal questions, I may direct you to our legal team to clarify some of that, but also take some time to read through the guidance document that I provided, because there is details that I did not cover in this presentation for the sake of time. So that is all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We did have one question in the chat. I was going to ask you real quick. And Elise, if you want to, you can start setting up your screen to share Flora's presentation next in the meantime. But the question was, does the Carrying the Torch student needs assessment count as a third-party assessment where they would need to get that parent permission?
So I would say yes, because it's not student identifiable. So that's good, because we don't drill down to the student, it's anonymous. However, there was a prior bill that was released regarding surveys. Really, any student analysis, even in the past, should have parental consent. So prior, it was more of kind of like an I think it was opt-in versus opt-out, but I would just, if it were me, I would probably follow the guidelines provided for this current legislation, just to ensure parents are notified. Those questions can be public. There's no reason why they can't be posted on your website, etc. So I would suggest, yes, getting parental consent, but as far as it being like a third party keeping student identifiable information, that does not occur. So you're good there.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much, Michelle. Flora, go ahead and take the stage.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you, Amanda and Dr. Mellon, for having us to be a part of this awesome presentation. We are super excited at the IDOE at the direction that we're moving. And so with that being said, Michelle, thank you for giving us the legislative update. That's a lot of information. And every time I hear it, I learn more. So thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing that, not only with our colleagues, but with Elise and myself. So with that being said, today I would like to talk a little bit about learner-centered, future-focused K-12 education. Today's focus will be on visions for K-12 education in Indiana, the Indiana GPS Performance Dashboard, and timeline and next steps. So when I think about the vision for K-12 education in Indiana, we are leading the country. And I often share that I heard on the news one day I was listening, and former Vice President Pence said, Indiana is leading educational reform. And I was super excited when I heard that, because we are truly leading the charge. And when I think about the things that we're doing, we can no longer provide education in the manner in which we did when I was in school many years ago. So when I think about being in the 6th grade, I don't remember thinking about what I wanted to be. But now we're looking at a continuum between pre-K and 12, because it's not enough for Indiana's students to get to the graduation stage. It's not enough to toss the hat. It's not enough to go to the open houses, but we have to think about the Monday after graduation. Have we prepared our students for post-secondary success? No longer is enrollment the only option. And Indiana is moving in that direction where we look at enrollment, employment, and enlistment that leads to service. So I want to make sure that as counselors and educators, we understand that we are rethinking. As Michelle said, we're rethinking education, because we can no longer, I'll say it again, do education the way we did before. And then I also want to say that we have to share this message, and we have to share it with our parents, because many of our parents have been out of school for quite a number of years. And so when we send home information, they're not clear. So we have to make sure that we're sharing it in a manner that our parents can understand. Next slide, please. So when we are talking about refocusing Indiana education, there's 3 pillars. And I love to hear Dr. Jenner talk about the 3 pillars. And when she talks about it, she's passionate. And I was in a presentation with her about a month or so ago, and she literally became tearful, because she talked about 1 in every 5 students can't read. And when she started speaking of it, she choked up. So we know that literacy is important, and students learning to read is critical. So when we think about pillar 1, student learning and opportunity. Pillar 2 is educator, talent, quality, and value. And pillar 3, system, alignment, and capacity. Let's go to pillar 1, student learning and opportunity. When I read this, I become more passionate about what I do, because I think about the quality, purposeful educational opportunities for each student, not some students, but each student. So when we talk about students now, we have to be inclusive of all. Expand and support quality, affordable, and accessible learning opportunities. Our legislators, they had the same idea. And when I listened to Michelle, and she talked about how we're incorporating materials and books, and how parents are no longer responsible for that cost, they're looking at that opportunity, making it affordable for our parents and our students. We want to strengthen the capacity to deliver the educational fundamentals to every child by grade 10. The fundamentals are the foundation for which we are teaching our students best practices, best tips for educational success. We want to help schools and communities strengthen and expand and create effective post-K-12 pathways and linkages. We're talking about pathways. That's something that wasn't a thing many years ago. And now we realize that we want our students to be able to look at their strengths, their interests, their values, and then align it with pathways that's going to provide them with post-secondary success. We want to create capacity and flexibility to drive effective learning, focus, innovation. So I often say, if your teacher is teaching from a legal pad that once was white pages and now yellow pages, it's time for them to throw those documents away and get on the digital system. So we have to be flexible, and we have to ensure that we're teaching in the times that we're living in. Re-envision how educational progress. Got a little note on my screen there and I can't read it. Okay, hold on. All right, I'm back. Re-envision how educational progress is measured and tailored to individual students. And then we have to strengthen systems to provide improved information regarding K-12 educational programs and results. Educator talent, quality, and value. Wow. When we think about our educators, I say thank you for your service, because our educators are on the front line and they are providing the support to students that often students will not receive if it were not for our educators. I am grateful because I've been in the field. I've sat in the counselor's chair. I've sat at central office. I understand what you're going through each day. But I say that we have to elevate the mission and the value of Indiana's K-12 educators. We must elevate the mission and the vision. We must recruit more of Indiana's best and brightest in order for us to continue to serve our students and give them the opportunities that they need to be successful. We have to work with educators to improve access to effective professional and leadership development. Currently, I am working with some additional community partners to provide some opportunities for teachers and teacher leaders. And all teachers, whether they're in an administrative role or in a classroom, they are leaders. They're leading the cause for educational reform. So we want to provide that professional development. Then we want to improve guidance, support, and accessible data. Data is what will drive decisions. And if we are not collecting data, and if we do not know how to disaggregate the data, and if we don't know how to be able to give that narrative of the data, then the data is not really helping us. So I'm saying data drive decision. So if you're a teacher or a counselor and you're not privy to the data, have a conversation with your administrator and say, I want to be a part of the data team. I want to understand the data in our school. So I'm saying get involved. That's what you're here for, to know what you can do to become the best of what you can be. Create networks and opportunities and sharing information, practices, and ideas with other educators. That is huge. Sharing your thoughts. Become that leader. That's what we're looking for when we look at strategic priority number 2. And then number 3, system alignment and capacity. Align effective and efficient support. We have to reduce unnecessary state laws, regulations and their costs, bureaucracy and barriers. And through the last legislative session, I think our legislators have gotten that message that we want to support education and educational reform. And they have given us some great opportunities to do just that. And part of the IDOE's responsibility is to provide guidance to the field so that you all will understand, as Michelle has shared today, the guidance for all of the House bills and acts and the policies and codes. And then we want to align available state data and fiscal resources. Partnerships and alignment and support. We must increase IDOE support for school and community capacity building. Part of what we do in the Office of Student Pathways and Opportunities is provide a monthly webinar where we're providing support to the field based on information that has been requested of us, FAQs. We provide that on our website. We are trying to give as much support as possible because, as I said, I've been in the field and I know the importance of having that support. We want to assist local educators in solution finding for real-time issues. Partner with lawmakers and other stakeholders to ensure that IDOE's strategic vision is supported and implemented. Indiana GPS Performance Dashboard. I'm going to go through this super quick because if you have any questions afterwards. This is my favorite quote, and it's from Abraham Lincoln. And it simply says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." How can we educate our students if we're not prepared? How can we be game changers if we're not prepared? How can we make a difference if we're not prepared? What gets measured gets improved. If we never measure anything, how can we improve it? So that's where the 3 Ds come in: data-driven decisions. Next slide. Indiana GPS level set. This is a major shift in the paradigm in terms of accountability for the state of Indiana. Students are so much more than a single test score. And I remember the I step and you step and we all step to the step. But no longer is a single test score the indicator that this student is successful or not. I think about academic mastery. And I ask the question a lot of times when I go out and I speak and I say, what is academic mastery? And they say, well, that's getting an A. And I say, absolutely not. What is academic mastery? And they say, well, it's getting an A. And I say, absolutely not. So what they say is, well, what is academic mastery, Ms. Joe? And I said, when a student can take the content of that class and apply it to a real life setting, they have mastered the content. So we want to make sure that our students are understanding what they are being taught and how it relates to the real world in which they live. These characteristics are not new, but we will elevate in the future based on the stakeholder feedback regarding how much knowledge and skills matter. So Indiana GPS, the goal of this accountability system will be to provide us a more robust view of student performance on a variety of important indicators. Extensive stakeholder engagement to gather feedback has been a critical part of this process, and it will continue to be every step of the way. This is designed by Hoosiers for Hoosiers, and this framework is designed to empower state and local collaboration to best serve our students. Foster learner-centered, future-focused systems. We want to create access to pathways and opportunities that prepare students for employment, enrollment, and enlistment that leads to service. We must encourage strategic partnerships between schools, communities, and state leading to improved outcomes for students. And one of the things that I think about when I think about those partnerships is the 3E grant, which we provided through my department, $57 million across the state to improve the continuum of exploration, engagement, and experiences. That's where we're looking at those partnerships between schools and communities. And because of that, we have seen such a high return from our first year of our 3E grant. Then we want to develop a dashboard that is transparent and nimble as the global marketplace continues to change. 5 characteristics: academic mastery. You all know that now, so you've got it. Career and post-secondary readiness, credentials and experiences, dual credit, dual enrollment. We have, certifications. So those are the things that we're looking for as we look at those credentials beyond the high school diploma, because we know that that's not enough anymore. Communication and collaboration, work ethic, civic, financial, and digital literacy. And then we have the Indiana GPS scrolling telling landing page. And then we have the state infographic page. We have district and school landing page. And then we have district and school drill down pages. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. The 3rd iteration released this spring, student level data, allowing local school leaders to easily view the data used to calculate each indicator. I'm saying to you, log on to Indiana Department of Education website. This is going to be game changing for you as educators, as counselors, as teachers. It's going to be game changers. This student level data is currently available for the following indicators. And it's 3rd grade literacy, 6th grade math growth, advanced coursework prior to grade 9, attendance, college and career coursework, the diploma strength, graduation pathway completion, I-Learn, and SAT performance. And we know that our 11th graders take the SAT as an accountability test. Note, student level data is not available to the public. So I want to make sure you all understand that. So let's go to the Indiana GPS, and I'm going to have Elise Locke. She's my assistant director, and she's going to kind of go through this super fast, show you where you can log into it if you haven't. I'm sure you all have, but just in case you haven't, let's go ahead, Elise, and do that real quick.
Great, thank you. So we always start just at the main Department of Education page, in.gov/DOE. In that search bar, that's the easiest way, because once you're on the home page, you can search for anything that you would like to look for. So for today, we are going to be looking for GPS or Indiana GPS. And the very first thing that is going to come up is the article that tells you all about the launch of Indiana GPS. And it links out to the performance dashboard right in that press release. This is what you'll see when you're actually in the Indiana GPS dashboard. And as Ms. Jones said, it's a scrolly telling feature. So you will scroll on your right side to see the story of Indiana GPS that Ms. Jones just told you about, the 5 characteristics and why they are important, leading to the different areas that we're wanting to see. So for pre-K through grade 2, expanding quality, affordable, and accessible early learning. Grades 3 through 8, delivering educational fundamentals, emphasis on reading and STEM. Grades 9 through 12, providing seamless transitions for Indiana students, and graduation and beyond, supporting Indiana students for a brighter future. As we continue to scroll, you will get more information about each of those areas, specific data points about the different grade levels that are really important. As Ms. Jones said, 1 of every 5 third graders is not proficient in those key literacy skills, how important that is for students as they go through. So I'm scrolling really quick and not really letting you read each of these, because the scrolly telling will tell you the story every time you log in, or you up in the upper right hand corner, if you become a frequent user, can skip that overview of the scrolly telling. So we'll scroll all the way to graduation and beyond, what comes next, and that's supporting students for a brighter future. After we learn about how that is so important, that takes you to our landing page for the state data. Where is Indiana today? So you can see at that state level, all of those areas that Ms. Jones talked about, where we are going. You can see those targets of where you're wanting to be, and then search for your individual school or district to be able to find your specific data. And we can search for any school system or district, like I said. Just pull any of them, and you are able to pull, again, not the student level data, because I am on the public facing site right now, but this is the publicly accessible, and you can see those different data indicators and drill down by district or by school. With that school user access is where you can see the individual student data to see who makes up this 77.5%. So that is the very quick Indiana GPS overview.
Awesome, Elise. Thank you so much. So I hope that all of you will please get on your website and begin to look at Indiana GPS, because it will help inform you of the student population that you have and the support. Moving forward, as she gets to the next slide, we will look at timelines and next steps. The IDOE will continue to engage a number of stakeholder groups to further define how we measure characteristics such as the communication, collaboration, and work ethic. And when we think about the communication and collaboration, I'm often out meeting with industry and community partners. And what they share with me is that students cannot communicate. They are on their devices. They're texting. When they ask them to speak about a particular issue, they do not have the verbal communication skills. And so my response to that is, let's make a deal. If I work with the teachers on teaching them to communicate and collaborate, will you allow them to use their technology skills to help you? And most of our industry and community partners say absolutely. Because I asked the question, how advanced are you in marketing? How are you with your websites? And they're like, well, they're pretty simple. I said, well, let the kids help because they're the natives, we're the immigrants. They have a knack for all of this technology. So our community partners are understanding how they must work with our students in order to have the opportunity to build their pipeline for employment in later years. And then we think about the work ethic, and we know that students who come to school every day have better opportunities and chances of having great work histories and work ethics. But a student could come every day and school starts at 8 and they come in at 9, or they come in at 10. They probably won't hold that job long. So we have to share with our students what is an example of great work ethics. And then we think about aspirational indicators, such as kindergarten readiness, pre-K through grade 2 literacy, and work-based learning. We must begin to be intentional with all of these indicators. And then the IDOE will also continue to work with stakeholders, including educators, parents, families, community leaders, and the General Assembly to determine how schools are best measured in the future. The development of this dashboard is an iteration process and will continue to be improved over time. The early warning indicator vision. Educators will clearly see which students are at risk and why, which is something that must be done in order for us to ensure that each student, and we're talking about all, can receive the support that they need. And then the data will reveal areas of difficulty for students to guide additional timely instruction and support. Often when counselors are meeting with students and students say, well, I'm really having a rough time in English. And the counselor may say, well, why? And they say, well, I don't know, I just don't get it. Well, if the counselor has a tool that they can use, they can go in and look at indicators. That's going to help them help the student provide information to the teacher. So we have to work as a team in collaboration. And then exportable indicators and profiles will help educators increase engagement with parents. And our parents are key. And sometimes we leave our parents out, except for twice a year, and that's parent-teacher conferences. And we must be inclusive of our parents. We have to ensure that they understand the direction and the way that our state is moving as it relates to educational reform, because we are rethinking our educational system. As Michelle indicated, we're looking at the core 40, we're looking at our diploma types and saying, are we meeting the needs of our students? Are we missing the boat somewhere? Have we included employability skills in our academic settings and in the standards that we have? So we are doing some focus groups, and we've got some key stakeholders that are providing us some informative information. And I thank you so much. And if there are any questions.
Thank you so much. We do have one question that's in the chat. Christy asked, how are we able to be a part of the stakeholder group? Or will that be done through the grant awardees?
What I will do is if Elise will put my contact information in, and if you'll send me an email, I will make sure, because I'm a part of those leadership of the focus groups, and I'd love to include you in that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. And Flora will be around too for the high school networking time at the end. So if you have other questions, I'm sure she would be more than happy to help answer any of those. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Greg Harrell. He's here from the Commission for Higher Education and looks like he's ready to go. Hi, Greg.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Good morning,
Oh, you're fine.
everyone, and thank you, Amanda and Dr. Mellon for this invitation. Appreciate everyone being here and connecting. So as Amanda said, my name is Greg Harrell. I'm the Director of Legislation and Programs here at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. And for about the next 30 minutes in which I'm going to present, have bucketed my presentation into 4 different areas. Wanted to start first just talking a little bit about the direction in which we're going at the Commission for Higher Education for those that maybe are a little bit familiar with our work but haven't worked with us often in the past, or maybe if you're brand new to school counseling, and in that case, welcome, but want to talk about us a little bit. And then for the next 3 bullets, we've heard a little bit about the legislative session already with what happened with CHE, but want to provide some additional updates. And then we will end things talking about 21st century scholars, as well as the exciting new Indiana pre-admissions, Your Path to College initiative. So with that, we will go ahead and dive in. So we have a higher education attainment goal here in the state, which has been around for several years, and we are pushing and working and partnering with groups such as the Department of Education, schools, philanthropic organizations, colleges, and universities to try to reach that goal. We have made some substantial progress in the past few years, but we're still short of hitting that 60% mark by 2025, where we're currently at 54%. So we have seen some growth, but that's predominantly been in the realm of certificate programs. So we are certainly pushing very hard, leading up to that deadline to raise the needle on this, because we know it's inextricably linked to our success and prosperity as a state. So in order to do that, students have to first go to college in order to complete. And we were at a high point about 5 years ago with 65% of high school learners pursuing, college beyond high school. And unfortunately, throughout the past 5 years, we've seen some pretty precipitous drops in that number, where we're now at a low point of 53% of high school learners. So that's very troubling in itself. But when you start to pull out the data and look at different demographics, whether that be race and ethnicity, gender, geography, or socioeconomic status, numbers are sometimes a little bit lower than what the statewide average is. And so we're very strongly focused on that at the commission, and trying to boost that up to where we were before. And we're very excited. One of the things this past legislative session is being able to leverage the 21st Century Scholars Program in a much more efficient and effective way with auto enrollment. And we really think that that's going to do a great job here in the next few years in boosting Indiana's college going rate. So we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But, obviously there are various, reasons for why we want students to pursue education beyond high school. Obviously everybody on the call knows about it, and I won't go through all these different statistics in detail on this graph, but it's something we like to share with partners. And really, I tell students and families when I'm working with them, yeah, these are just statistics, but there are thousands of Hoosier students and families behind them. So it drives the work that we do. And when we look at the benefits of higher education, whether it be wages, unemployment rates, health insurance, even the length of time people live, all of those different areas are significantly impacted by educational attainment. So, we're being loud about this, talking about it as much as we can, and really trying to, convince not just our students coming out of high school to pursue education and training beyond college, but also working with adults throughout the state. In fact, Commissioner Lowry, who has now been in his role for about a year, one of his first actions was creating a new adult strategy position at the associate commissioner level. So they've been doing a lot of good work and really exploring that topic too at the commission. So for legislative updates, we've heard a little bit from Michelle about the Senate Enrolled Act 167, which is the FAFSA requirement. So it does make filing the FAFSA a default option for high school students beginning with the graduating class of 2024. It's applicable to both public schools, traditional public schools, as well as charter schools, as well as accredited private schools here in the state. So it's something that we have pushed for very strongly at the Commission for Higher Education for just about the past 5 legislative sessions. We were one of the first in the nation to really start talking about this, but we were not one of the first to pass it. We know it can be, I think, a game changer for the state of Indiana, especially looking at some of our peers who came before us. We join a list of 7 other states who have universal FAFSA legislation in the country. And so there are several examples of just how positive these changes have been. But one that I like to cite often is Alabama, looking at them where for their class of 2022, they jumped from 34th in the country in terms of the percent of their high school seniors completing the FAFSA to 9th. You see similar things. Texas is another example where they went from 23rd to 5th for the class of 2022. And we look at where we were in Indiana, we were 40th just a few years ago. So obviously not where we want to be, but we really think this opportunity is going to give us some momentum to move the needle forward for the FAFSA, because the fact of the matter is, for anyone who works with a FAFSA, support students, we know that that's the gateway not just to federal and state financial aid that we provide at the Commission for Higher Education, but also institutional dollars and those sometimes provided by foundations. So it's critically important for our students. We do recognize as we were going through this legislative session that it is an additional piece of collaboration that we're asking for from our school partners. And so the language that we landed on does allow for broad opt-out provisions for families who do not wish to file. So we will be providing this month guidance on this bill, and then also giving an opt-out form for you all to provide to your families. For those who do not wish to file, they can take that action on their own. In terms of the parents and guardians of a student, or if the student is emancipated, they are able to do that themselves. Further, our state priority deadline for financial aid is April 15th. So as Michelle stated earlier, if the school has made 2 attempts to reach the family about filing the FAFSA and they've not done it, there will be a way by which in ScholarTrack we're building where you can batch waive your students beyond that deadline. So that will be as quick and not onerous on schools as possible. And so wanted to talk about those 2 pieces first. But again, there will be additional information coming out early this month for you all to have. Next is House Enrolled Act 1449, which dealt with 21st Century Scholars auto enrollment. And I'd be lying if I said that this legislative session wasn't a historic one. If we had just passed auto enrollment, that would have been massive in itself. But there were many other areas that we had some great success on for higher education too. So the bill essentially at its core requires us at CHE to collaborate with the Department of Education to identify and enroll eligible students into the 21st Century Scholars Program. So it really allows us broadly as a state to shift from enrollment to student success. So whether it's our outreach coordinators who operate in all 92 counties, our school counselors, community partners, et cetera, as this population essentially doubles in size, we'll be able to much more effectively support them at the high school level in earning their award and not be so caught up on enrollment and trying to chase down students and parents for information and ultimately get students enrolled. So very excited. To Dr. Jones's point, removing that administrative hurdle was very exciting for us as well. The General Assembly also in that bill provided language that allows parents or guardians to opt their students out if they're under 18. So I don't think that's going to be common, but that is possible if a family does not want to be in the program. So we are hard at work doing that in our system right now. We enrolled the cohort of 2027, so current freshmen, back in July. Our 2028 cohort was enrolled in August, and we will be enrolling 2029 in October. Communication will go out to enrolled families in October, so we're working with a vendor to send those notifications out. But again, I want to emphasize that compared to our class of 2026 21st Century Scholars, we have doubled that population for the class of 2027. So incredible win for the state of Indiana, and we do think this is going to be a game changer as well. One additional piece, so we are enrolling students through auto enrollment based upon whether the student is a recipient of free and reduced lunch. If a family does not sign their student up and still qualifies by way of income, they will still have the opportunity to apply either by the paper application, which is then submitted into ScholarTrack, or if the parent creates their own account in ScholarTrack, they can still apply their student that way. The application will now open in October, so it will be here just here in a few days, and it will run through June 30th. For those families to apply. And so another thing too with students coming from out of state is an example that could still be eligible for free and reduced lunch. In other circumstances, we will be doing auto enrollment for each cohort in middle school on a quarterly basis. And so I'll kind of go through this one a little quickly, but I wanted to provide some background just on the 21st Century Scholars Program for those of you who might be new to the program and going to be supporting in it. So the program's been around for about 30 years. Income eligible students are enrolled in middle school in either 7th or 8th grade, and then scholars who fulfill the Scholar Pledge earn up to 4 years of paid tuition in an eligible college here in the state of Indiana. One thing to note, I think it was in the prior slide, but students who are auto-enrolled still have to go through the Scholar Pledge, meet all the requirements as before, whether that's the Scholar Success Program, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, or the diploma type with which they graduate. Since the program's been around for a while, about 50,000 students have used the 21st Century Scholarship and ultimately graduated with a degree. And the neat thing is that about 3/4 of them end up staying here in the state of Indiana. So it's, as I said, it's a tuition-based scholarship. Depending on the institution to which the student matriculates, it moves a little bit differently. So if it's a public college or university, we pay full tuition as well as regularly assessed fees. So things like a student activity fee or technology fee, something that's assessed to the whole student body, we pay as well through the program. What we don't pay are other costs of attendance, be those room and board, books, et cetera. That's not paid by us. We pay partial tuition if a student chooses a private college. So that can be a nonprofit institution. There are about 30 of those in the state, or a for-profit proprietary school. At our private nonprofits, we pay just north of $9,000 for the 23-24 academic year. It'll be similar to that next year during 24-25. For our proprietary institutions, we take the equivalent of Ivy tax tuition for a full-time student in any given academic year, and that's what students would receive if they chose that type of school. So that's about $5,000. One thing is that many of our colleges and universities, because of the touch points and exposure that students have who are 21st century scholars throughout high school, oftentimes by way of the Scholar Success Program, they know that they are going to be successful once they're there. And so there are many times going to be scholarships or specific incentives that our institutions, both public and private, have designed for 21st century scholars, as well as wraparound support. So that's a piece that we try to keep track of at the Commission for Higher Education. So be happy to connect with anybody about that guide if you'd like to see it. And then for eligibility requirements, so during enrollment, students have to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen. Eligible non-citizen can be a number of different things, but essentially looking at permanent resident status. Also those who are refugees, humanitarian parolees, or have had their asylum case granted. Students have to be Indiana residents, of course. They can be automatically enrolled, or they can apply depending on their case in middle school. Once they are enrolled, whatever the case, they need to create a ScholarTrack account and agree to the Scholar Pledge. So that will be a prompt that appears as soon as they create their account and log in for the first time. And then with the academic pieces, we do require that our students graduate with no less than a 2.5 cumulative GPA, and that is on a 4.0 scale. Core 40 diploma is the minimum. We always encourage students to go above and beyond that, though. The Scholar Success Program is really the cornerstone of the program in high school, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. And then lastly, I wanted to make mention of financial means testing, which has been around for a while, which happens one time when the student files the FAFSA as a high school senior looking to go to college, just ensuring that the funding that we're providing for students truly is going to students in need. So that is in statute and something that we follow at the Commission. And I have a slide about that here in a minute, and I'll detail that a little bit more. So enrollment, just really quickly, some of this is repetitive, but for those students who may not be in auto-enroll this year, this is what our income guidelines are for the updated 23-24 academic year. We get those by using the information from the United States Department of Agriculture when they publish it each year. Yeah, and I know we're a little short on time, so this part's a little repetitive, but students do have to, who are 21st century scholars, enroll in college within 1 year of graduating high school in order to retain their eligibility. And then obviously through the pledge, there is a pledge of good citizenship, and that's detailed in the final bullet point below. This next slide is the Scholar Success Program. So just really quickly, I won't read through all these, but they do flow in a sequential way during each grade level in high school. And so most of these activities students are going to be doing anyway, just by virtue of being a high school student. But really what we try to do is be intentional in conversations that we have with students in schools and reinforce the importance of all these different pieces, be it, talking through why they created a graduation plan, as early as ninth grade and how that's going to guide them throughout their 4 years in high school and really set them up for success for whatever pathway they choose beyond it. So those are requirements for students in order for them to receive their award by earning it, and they must be completed before they can earn the scholarship. And those are all done in ScholarTrack. Maintaining the award, obviously the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, isn't a one and done event. A student should fill that out each year for the following year in which they are planning to attend college. They have to be full-time, so students cannot be part-time in college and receive the scholarship. Maintain satisfactory academic progress while there. It is credit completion driven, so at least 30 credit hours is the minimum per year. If students fall below that, they can use banked hours, whether that be by dual credit, AP, or IB courses. And then lastly, maintaining Indiana residency while using the scholarship. So this is what I wanted to talk about in detail a little bit. Probably a lot of people are really familiar with the financial means test, but again, this is first happens as a high school senior, files the FAFSA. There's no additional documentation or information that a student needs to provide other than what's on the FAFSA. We take what's on the FAFSA and look at annual household income, and the level is set to 370% of the federal poverty level. There are different brackets of that per household size. So it's essentially double the amount to qualify for the free and reduced lunch program that students initially have to meet when they enroll in the program. We look at, for example, students in December will be filing the 24-25 FAFSA. So we use the income applicable to the FAFSA that the student's completing. So in this case, for students in 2024, that's going to be 2022 income amounts that the commission is looking at. So this is the bracket that we use for the financial means test. So obviously it fluctuates depending on the size of the household, which is another area that we get from the FAFSA. So that doesn't need to be provided to us by families. It begins with a family of two, so student and their parent at $67,747 and increases an additional $17,464 per additional member of the family. And there are some exceptions to that, some very narrow ones. So if a student does exceed 370% of the federal poverty level from their FAFSA, they can still qualify for 21st Century Scholars if they meet at least one of three exceptions. So if the student still qualifies for a federal Pell Grant, they'll retain their 21st Century Scholarship. If they enrolled as a result of being in legal guardianship, that's another. And then lastly is if the student was in foster care when they enrolled. And one more piece that's not highlighted on this screen is that if a student is removed because of the financial means test, obviously they've put, work into the program, completed the Scholar Success Program, done well in high school. We do not just yank everything away from them. We do provide the students with a one-time award of $2,500 that is applied to tuition just as if it were 21st Century Scholars. So we think that that's important too. But following that, the student will not be eligible for the 21st Century Scholarship. So just a few dates throughout the year to be aware of. April 15th is the state priority deadline for FAFSA. For counselors who work with us in reporting graduation details in ScholarTrack, final cumulative GPA and diploma type for senior scholars, as well as preliminary GPA and diploma type for junior scholars is due June 15th. We can work with you if it needs to be done beyond that, but that is the date that we like to set at the commission because we need time to create awards over the summer so that they can be available when the students enroll in the fall. The notification in ScholarTrack typically happens in July to students, and then disbursement occurs during the months of August and September that we provide to the colleges through ScholarTrack for students. There are appeals for a number of circumstances, I mean, be that the enrollment deadline itself, FAFSA, GPA diploma type, certainly connect with us if you're supporting a family and they have, a circumstance that's compelling for why, any of these things and others might have not been met. Some things that we like to mention, for example, if a foster care student is enrolled in 10th grade and at that point, just meeting that 2.5 GPA isn't possible, that is certainly an appeal that our team can look at. Another piece is that for students who have an IEP that prevents them from taking certain courses to earn their Core 40, that is another case that we certainly will review at the commission. So one thing we tell families is that filing it does not guarantee that it will be approved, but our team typically, depending on their workload, has those reviewed and completed within 2 to 3 weeks. So if you got any questions about that, I've left the email on there that you can communicate with for further questions. And then,
Greg,
yes.
we have several questions in the chat. A couple about FAFSA and then some about 21st Century Scholars. Do you me to share some of those now or before you go into the pre-admissions? Okay, great. Sure. So the first question was, can we get the opt-out FAFSA form ASAP since we are meeting with seniors and parents during this time of year?
Yeah, so it will be provided in that communication that I mentioned that goes out in October. It will be in the next few weeks. I don't have a concrete date at which that will be provided. One thing I do want to highlight though is that the FAFSA does not open until December. So because of the changes going on, so it's not even open yet. But yeah, that can certainly be provided and will be.
Great. Does every family that wishes to opt out of the FAFSA have to be marked by the counselor in Scholar Track?
So there's the manual opt-out form that we will provide. The other piece, I think the question is that I referenced in Scholar Track, we're building out a widget in which the counselors can batch upload students, who have not completed the opt-out form, but with whom the school has communicated with at least twice. And those will just be ingested into the system. So it will not be a manual process at all, but it will be built into Scholar Track.
And then kind of going along with that, if parents want to opt out of 21st Century Scholars, who do they contact?
That is a good question. I will circle back in the chat and see what the process is for that. I mean, that will not be common, but certainly it is allowed if parents decide to. So I don't know what the process is yet for that at CHE, but I can certainly check and we'll let the person know. I'll grab. If you wouldn't care, I'll drop my email in the chat here in a minute and we can communicate on that.
Okay. Will we be able to see the letter that is sent to families October 2023?
The FAFSA letter? Is that the question?
I don't know. Is that 21st Century or was that FAFSA? Which are you referencing there? That was Dana's question, if you're still on, Dana.
So, well, I'll
21st Century, she said.
Okay.
21st Century. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that will be sent to the family themselves. That won't go to the school. Okay.
And then how are families identified? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I just thought I'd mention with the FAFSA, that memo will be going out to schools.
Okay. And then how are families identified? We are a school that no longer requires the free reduced app to be completed.
Yeah, so we received that information from our partners at the Department of Education for students who have signed up for free and reduced lunch. So if there is a substantial population of students at your school who are eligible but are not signing up for free and reduced lunch, they will still go through the way in which we did things before, through the application itself. So that can be them working with you and completing that paper application, and then a counselor or administrator completing that in Scholar Track, or if the family decides to do that on their own, a parent can create their own parent account in Scholar Track and apply for their student. So, and that's exactly why that option exists, because there are going to be examples from all corners of the state of, some students who based on the income guidelines do qualify, but are not receiving free and reduced lunch. They will not be identified by our partnership with the Department of Education, and then we'll have to go through that process in order to apply.
Okay. And because our grade 9 2027 cohort was not aware of the auto enroll free reduced application requirement, we would like to advocate for there being an option for families to apply for consideration for this 1 year. And then I had that somebody else had that same question. What about schools who are automatically free lunches for all?
Yeah, I don't know, Dr. Jones or Michelle, if you have any thoughts on that last question. I mean, we get that information from the department for students whom they've identified.
Well, I think they're asking for like the class of 2027, because retroactively they would not have known that we were going to auto enroll them. So I think they're asking, is there still an opportunity for the class of 2027 to do a paper application? Or is it because the June 30th date occurred, then they're just no?
Yeah, so the auto
Does that
enrollment
make sense?
Yeah, so I was going to answer that too, but I wanted to grab the last question first. So the auto enrollment process did occur for those students who were not signed up for free and reduced lunch. They still had that, you know, not just that full year, but also their 7th grade year as well to apply. So unfortunately that, I mean, a student could submit an appeal, but that's not going to be a, you know, compelling reason that would be approved. So I appreciate the advocacy though.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, because I'm one of them that our school, like, we don't do free and reduced lunch applications because our entire school is considered free and reduced lunch. So there is no data, like we have no way of saying who qualifies and who doesn't qualify, because they all qualify regardless of their income. So like, for example, I can have a family that makes $100,000 a year. They're getting free and reduced lunch because our school is the community eligible process. So that's where I'm getting confused on, how do I know which of are all of my 8th graders being auto enrolled, or how are you determining that? Because there is no data for free and reduced lunch because our families aren't required to fill out the form.
I would think that there's still there, if your whole school is community-wide, only those students that actually applied for free and reduced with the state form are going to be showing up on that data. So I think you would still have to encourage folks to apply for free and reduced lunch, because I think there's other things that are tied to that application.
Okay, so then it's safe to say, since we do not have a free and reduced application for our families, that not a single one of our 8th graders are going to be auto enrolled.
Yeah, I can that tracks, Roberta. I can, if you want to send me an email, again, I'm going to drop my email in the chat and we can connect on that, but I do not believe they would be picked up by that process if they're not completing that form.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I put in the chat too, is there a way that CHE can actually put some kind of a universal qualifier for free reduced lunch on the 21st century page, or in some way that if we get parents to that page, they can use that one-stop shop for qualification? Because that's the battle we run into. We have free reduced lunch for all. There's no impetus to go in and do the application. As much as we harp at them and tell them there are other things tied to it, it really becomes a challenge because lunch is covered. We've got that part taken care of.
Yeah. So yeah, this process has been put in place to significantly reduce the burden on our families and simultaneously on our schools. For students who are not signed up for free and reduced lunch, as I said before, they will still be able to apply as we had before. So that will be their option.
Okay, and then somebody asked a question about, can you speak to the reason why the numbers in a cohort may have decreased rather dramatically after the auto-enroll scholar track?
You know who asked that?
It was Renee. Renee, are you still on? I know you're driving, but
Yeah, I know, Renee, I'm happy to connect on that, but I'll need some more specifics to help you. And I'll probably end up connecting you with Hillary Deerdorf, who is our director of outreach. I'm substituting her today because we have a member who just became a father. So she's down in Evansville helping out with an event. I'm pinch hitting on our end. So happy to connect further though, but I think we'll need some more specifics on your question to investigate that.
okay. And I'm scrolling down a little further. FMT only done during senior year. When did this change?
I don't have the date off the top of my head. For a while, the commission was using the financial means test each year. We've shifted gears, and that happens during the student senior year of high school as a college-going senior.
Is there a paper copy form we can print for families to enroll in 21st Century Scholars? Yes?
There is, yeah. I don't think that our outreach team has released that just yet, but there certainly is the paper form, just like that we've used in the past. But the application hasn't even become available yet. It will happen at the beginning of October. So that's probably why that hasn't been provided yet, but it certainly is available.
Okay. Does it pull from food stamps or TANF as well?
It does not. No. So that process, again, that's a good question, is going to be from the students who are signing up by that form while in middle school.
And then last question, then you can move on. Do students have to sign the pledge? Oh shoot, now I'm having other ones coming. Do students have to sign the pledge in 8th grade, or can this be done in high school after they are automatically enrolled?
Yeah, so let's give the class of 2027 as an example. Obviously, we have students who are going in now and completing that pledge. So that's the first step. Before they're completing the Scholar Success Program, they have to effectively create an account and then affirm. It's a quick step. It's just a checkbox where they're reading the requirements and expectations of the program and then agreeing to them before they're able to get started.
Okay. And then Renee responded. She is still on, but she can have a sidebar with Hillary to talk through that one question a little bit more.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right,
perfect.
You can go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. How are we doing on time?
We're about at time, but go ahead and
Okay.
go ahead and finish your slides, and then we'll just cut into our networking a little bit. That's
Perfect.
fine. Thanks.
Perfect. And as I said, those are all really great questions. I will leave my email for anything you want to connect more on, or maybe additional topics you haven't put in the chat but want to discuss. So with Indiana pre-admissions, this is a really exciting initiative that we have started at the Commission for Higher Education. And it also begins with this high school class of 2024, so current seniors. It is a partnership between the Commission, public colleges and universities, as well as hundreds of high schools so far throughout the state. We've had over 300 sign on board and 38 campuses working with us to overall streamline and I think make the college admissions process more transparent for our students and less intimidating. And so we have modeled our program off of predominantly what Idaho did and started with back in 2015 to streamline the process using cut scores provided by our institutions who have agreed to participate for either GPA and or SAT. We receive the GPAs through graduation details reporting from our schools in ScholarTrack. We're very fortunate, again, to have that strong partnership with the Department of Education. We're able to ingest student SAT scores. And with that information coming together, we're able to tell students that, you have a spot at up to 38 colleges here in Indiana available to you. So really, sharing all these great opportunities in Indiana, taking a lot of guessing out of the process. And as long as students, continue to perform well while seniors, and there are some additional caveats for some of your private, especially religious based schools, but saying definitively, hey, there's a spot for you at this campus, which is very exciting. So The commission, I did connect with our outreach team on the date that students and parents will receive the letter indicating the students' institutions to which they've been pre-admitted. They are working with the vendor to get that out as soon as possible in October. And so students will get that letter, their parents will get that too, which has those decisions provided. Additionally, it's a duplexed letter. So on the back of that will be some helpful information about the FAFSA in terms of timeline, changes, what's needed to complete an FSA ID, and ultimately complete the FAFSA once it's available in December. These students on their letter will be directed to a one-stop shop landing page that we have created on Learn More Indiana, which is the commission's public-facing platform for families, in which they can see all of the institutions participating in pre-admissions and apply to not just the institutions to which they've been pre-admitted if they choose, but others who are not participating. We've included all colleges there. And then students can apply for some institutions through the Common App, some through the institutional link. Some have both options available, but just really trying to make this process overall better for our students and families. So looking at the timeline for that, letters were mailed back in August to our students, just introducing what exactly this program was. We in September have already created the landing page on Learn More Indiana. And then there is a widget that's been built in ScholarTrack that is now live, where students already have their pre-admissions decisions if they just go in there and check that out. But additionally, that letter is going to be coming early October with official decisions. So kind of beyond that, once we're in October, and now encourage students to apply via that landing page. That ScholarTrack widget with decisions will be available until May 1st. And then it will be removed following that date. So just important to keep that in mind when working with students in ScholarTrack. And then lastly, again, I've talked about it a few times that the FAFSA is opening up later this year. So encouraging students and families to create FSA IDs ahead of it opening if possible, and definitely filing the 24-25 FAFSA no later than April 15th of 2024. So, how can schools and counselors, teachers support students? So discussing pre-admissions list, I can't tell you as a former outreach coordinator on the commission's outreach team how important that would have been working with high school seniors as they start to explore college applications. And, a lot of students saying, well, I don't know what's available. I don't know what's for me, what majors. Well, just being able to have that list and show them, hey, here's 10 schools right here that are eager to have you as a student. Let's check those out. Let's see if they have the major that you're interested in. With that, there will be information obviously in ScholarTrack. So if a student doesn't have an account, working with them on ScholarTrack creation, ensuring that their account information is updated, visiting that one-stop shop landing page for pre-admissions, talking through college applications and FAFSA deadlines, FSA IDs, as I said before, and college application week. We're currently in the midst of it, so I know there's a lot of great events going on throughout the state. 36 institutions across Indiana have waived their college application fees. Some of that group do that year round, but there are many institutions that typically have a fee that has now been waived during this week. So certainly, if events aren't going on already, encourage your students to visit Learn More Indiana where that lives. And students can see who those institutions are. One last thing, looking ahead to FAFSA, our outreach team led by Hillary Deerdorf, as well as our colleagues at InvestEd, love to work with schools, students, families in FSA ID creation, FAFSA filing. We're in all 92 counties throughout the year supporting families. So if you're not connected with our outreach team, I'm certainly happy to facilitate that connection to your outreach coordinator. And again, being redundant here, but remember the state deadline is April 15th for our current seniors to qualify for state-based financial aid. And so, Amanda, I know we're over time. I'll skip through this slide here and just end with this area where, we have a great outreach team. You can connect with your coordinator on Learn More Indiana, but certainly I'm happy to facilitate that connection too. And so I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I want to drop my information in the chat for everybody. So I appreciate the questions and just everybody's time for being part of this important discussion today. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. There are a few more questions in the chat, which I want to give you time to answer those since we have you here with us. So I'll share a couple of those now. The first one was, will we be able to see the list of students from our school that have been pre-admitted? Oh, you're muted. Sorry, Greg.
You would think a couple of years past the pandemic, I figured it out.
I do it too.
So, so that's a really good question. Yes, I don't think that has been made live yet. I know that the outreach team is working with our IT team to build that infrastructure into ScholarTrack. So certainly that report will be available for our school users at the high school level to pull down and be able to support students. But certainly if you're working one-on-one with a student now, the widget is live where you can see that list of schools to which an institution has been pre-admitted. One other thing is that after talking with Idaho, there were instances in which students didn't get any schools on their list in that state. We are fortunate here in Indiana, that's not the case. Every student will get at least 3 institutions on there. So Ivy Tech Community College, Vincennes University, and then Martin University will at least be on every student's list. So we're really excited for that. You know, the commissioner is very engaged in hope. That is driving its Hoosier opportunities and possibilities through education. Is kind of our North Star at the commission, and you know, that's really what we're looking to deliver with this and others is, you know, motivating students to get excited about what their futures are, what could be beyond high school, and we hope that this is just one, you know, tool in the toolbox in working with schools across the state to kind of spark that interest in you know, what a student could do beyond high school.
Someone asked if they could see a copy of the letter that goes out to the families because they'll probably get questions about it. Is there a way to see that letter?
I'm sure that's possible. I will connect with Hillary on that. Again, I'm not trying to dodge questions, but just kind of pinch hitting for her in this presentation. But yeah, I'm sure that would be possible.
And Greg, if there's any follow-up, maybe responses that are needed, I'm happy to send it out to this whole group, everybody who registered for this webinar. That might be easier
Perfect.
than, you know,
Yeah.
responding to a bunch of emails.
Yeah, sure.
So feel free to send me something to send back out to this group too, if that's helpful.
Perfect.
If they have a limited ScholarTrack account, will they still be able to see the pre-admissions info?
No, they will need to upgrade to the full account.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those I think are all the questions in the chat. So thank you very much, Greg. He did put his email in the chat if you have follow-up questions. Oh, somebody asked, can we circle back to the ASVAB slide, HEA 1635? Our school was under the interpretation that effective July 2023, ASVAB could not be used for box 3 for any new testers in the class of 2024. Is this interpretation correct, or was there a pushback to the class of 2025?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead. We are going to skip our break because we're almost to the end of our time together. So hopefully that's okay. If you do need to take a break, go run and take a break. But otherwise, we are going to head into some networking time. We'll shorten that just a little bit, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and open up 3 rooms, elementary, middle, high school, and then counselor leaders. Counselor leaders, if you would rather go into the high school room to hear, or the elementary middle, but to hear from Flora and Michelle and to be in that conversation, please feel free to go to that high school room. So that's up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and then you can select your room of choice. I will let you know when there's a minute or 2 remaining, and then we'll all come back together just to close. So here we go. You should have something that popped up on your screen, and you can select a room. Everybody see that? Okay, welcome back, everybody. I am going to drop a few things into the chat. You will see when here, let me get to my slide deck. This slide right here that you're seeing on the screen, there is a link to a notes page. So if you wanted to write anything down from today, if you had any follow-up questions, if you have any action items or time that you want to process some of this information shared, then there is a notes page to do that I put into your chat. It's in this slide. If you click on that, write it down, that's actually a hyperlink and it will take you to make a copy of that notes page. So feel free to do that. I'm just going to close out a few things. Hopefully you had some time during that networking to just ask a couple of questions, maybe get some more information. And I know in the high school group, they probably had a lot to discuss with some of the people that were in that room as a follow-up to some of what was presented today. Several upcoming events I wanted to share with you. Everything in this slide is hyperlinked, so it will take you right to the registration for these events. We started a new counselor cadre. This is for any new counselor in their first or second year as a counselor. They can join this year-long series. It will include monthly virtual professional learning opportunities, and they will also be paired with a school counselor mentor. So if you have anyone in your district that is new to the profession, tell them about this, and there is still time to register for this. Carrying the Torch to Student Success. This is we're offering 2 free tracks in collaboration with the DOE, Inspire Success, and ISCA. So if you're interested in developing a comprehensive counseling program through Carrying the Torch, then you can sign up for either the bronze, silver level track or the gold track. And the kickoff for the bronze silver is next week. So if you want to register for free for that, if you haven't already done so. And then we have some upcoming free virtual opportunities similar to this one on creating and sustaining a comprehensive counseling program. We're going to be hearing from 3 counselor leaders from 3 different Indiana districts, and that one is next week. And then beginning of November, we'll have a session on restorative practices. Also, some resources that are available on our website. We have blogs that are posted about once a month that are counselor or student service professional specific. So be sure to check out the on-demand library to read some of those blogs. We have targeted DIY learning guides covering the topics that you see there on the left-hand side of the slide. These are great for PLCs or any time that you meet with the counselors in your building or the counselors across your district. There are typically a few links to some on-demand videos, maybe some reading material, blogs, articles, things of that nature, and then usually some kind of discussion, questions, or action items for you to do with your group of counselors. If there's a topic that you would like to see added to the list of DIY guides, shoot Samantha Vidal or myself an email, and we will try and create a new one for you. On-demand learning, anything that we put out there virtually is typically recorded, like this one will be, and those will all be available either in the Keep Indiana Learning on-demand library or in the Counselor Connect YouTube playlist. So either way, you can go back and access those, and then some podcast episodes as well are available in the on-demand library. Finally, thank you for attending today. If you do want to fill out a very short evaluation form and also access 2 PGP points for license renewal, then you can just fill out this PGP request that's linked here, and you will have those PGP points automatically sent to you in your email. With that, we are right on the dot at 10:30. So thank you for being here. There is one more slide that has my contact information if you need to reach out. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining us today. Take care, everyone.